Welcome back to Stonehard Sports. It is officially almost time for the draft. I'm so excited. I'm recording this on Tuesday, so 2 days before the draft. Going to get a video out, so you have at least 2 days to watch it. And of course, it's the final mock draft. Now, a few things just want to preface before we get in. There are a million different ways this draft could go. I feel like we say this every year. Oh, the draft's going to be crazy. I feel like this one really feels like it's going to be pretty insane, just the amount of things that could possibly happen. So we're going to go through this first initial mock of, hey, this is a possible scenario that could happen if I'm going based on rumors slash, what some people are saying. The past mock I had done was kind of what I would do. And if you haven't already, you're probably coming from that channel, but go check out Mathis. The latest mock draft that'll be out on his channel, I did with him, and we both did it together, and we were presenting another possible scenario that could happen for the draft. So this is just kind of another one, and there's one big, I think, thing that could just change the top especially, and it'll all kind of trickle down after. And we'll get into that one pick, because I think that one pick you need to have a mock with it and without it, because it's a pretty big deal if it happens, but we'll get to that later. So let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and get this mock started. Starting off with the first overall pick, it is of course going to be Caleb Williams. This has been set in stone for a long time. Don't need the full preamble. I think once the draft actually happens, we will have grades and stuff for everything. And I'll try to give like an overarching just evaluation of the player to team fit and everything like that. But with Caleb, you can kind of do it right now because it's already set in stone. But I think this would be a pretty great spot for a team. I will say, maybe with him being in Chicago, they don't have the greatest history of potential quarterback development. So I would definitely see a case where he's going to a team without like a for sure, like set in stone, great offensive coaching staff. And is there a possibility if they disappoint, the coach could be fired? Yeah. And that would not be a great start. But I think going with the weapons and the team that they have, I think they should be pretty excited, especially just Bears fans going into next year. And I don't think it's a stretch to say that Caleb will probably be the best quarterback in Bears history. Which, does it say a ton? Maybe not, because they have had the worst history of quarterbacks, but I think he'll solidly be the best and probably reach even more than that. Just depends, because he's going to be crazy in terms of his play style, not his personality, because a lot of people seem to like to make up a bunch of random stuff about how he's a terrible teammate and everything like this. Haven't heard or seen anything like that, so don't really know why that would be the case. Just kind of general media trying to stir up stuff, and people online being able to say whatever they want without any sort of repercussions if they don't have a voice that garners a lot of attention. So that's kind of the thing there. But Williams, easy pick there. And number 2 is, I feel like, is kind of set right now as well, and it's apparently Jaden Daniels. Now, there was apparently some sort of issue. They went to a Topgolf. The Commanders had quarterbacks go to a Topgolf, and Jaden Daniels didn't know that it was like every other first-round caliber quarterback, and apparently he got upset about it, and his agent had an issue. So I don't know if there's a problem there, but maybe they hashed it out. It just seems like it's slowly treading towards it being Jaden at 2, which brings you to number 3. And number 3 is the biggest difference maker, because they are apparently open to trading this pick, and the 2 teams that are trying to trade up with them are the Vikings and the Giants. Now, in my opinion, I think it's more likely the Vikings go than the Giants, just because obviously they have another first-round pick to throw in there. But the Patriots are asking for a ton. They're potentially asking for 4 first-round picks to go up and get a quarterback, which I just don't really know if a team is going to be willing to pay that much. But do I think it might be worth it? I do. I think that highly of Drake May, especially if I'm Minnesota. But maybe it's just too much for them. Maybe it's just too much, and I think the Patriots would also be fine staying there and picking. And I think in this mock specifically, just as like a trying to find a way for the final, we'll let it be Drake May. But I'll preview at the end, so stay to the end, of what it could look like if they do trade the pick and the Vikings or Giants potentially move up. But if not, Drake May at 3, and I don't want to just copy the mock that I had with Mathis. I want you guys to see 3 potential different scenarios because a lot of the viewers are probably from Mathis's channel. And while we had the Chargers trading down, I do think it might be slightly more realistic that the Cardinals trade down. Obviously, if they don't, it's Harrison Jr. But I think with the Giants being such a threat, I think it might force Minnesota to potentially try and move up. The cost doesn't matter a ton. It'll look something like this, but it'll probably be for JJ. And I think I mean this whole planned mock, I had gone back and forth on everything, and I originally didn't have them trading up at all. And I was like, hey, look, maybe the JJ stuff is all smoke, and maybe they're like, hey, we just want to trade it for Drake. If he's not there, then we won't trade up, and we'll hope JJ falls. But it seems like it would just be weird that they have all of this stuff happen and all this talk, and it was all just nothing, it was like all for nothing. I mean, that trade was there for a reason. So I think it's where there's smoke, there's fire for this story at least. And I think if it's not Drake, I still they could stay. Maybe it's the Giants getting him as well, but I still think they would try and get up and probably take J.J. McCarthy, which he'd be going to the best scenario out of these guys, maybe better than Caleb Williams, probably, honestly, because of coaching. And 4 quarterbacks in the first 4 picks. That's chaos. It could totally happen. Then we would have the Chargers at 5. They've been linked to Joe Alt a lot, and I would love to try and find a mock maybe where Joe Alt goes here. It would just totally mess up stuff because the Titans, I wouldn't know what they would do because I don't think they'd take receiver. I think maybe a team would trade with the Titans, or maybe the Titans just stay there and pick the second best O-lineman on their board. That's very possible. But in this one, I think even though they do really want O-line, and if they trade down with the Vikings, let's say, if Cardinals stay at 4, I think the Chargers would take a offensive lineman if they trade down. But if they stay here, let's just go with Marvin Harrison Jr. because I think that would kind of be the realistic pick there. Then we have number 6 with the Giants. Didn't get a quarterback. They we're looking at getting one, apparently, but I think if they stay and JJ's not there, it's probably just Neighbors. That's pretty much the easy pick there. And then obviously same with the Titans. It's Alt if these guys are available. But I hope you realize how crazy and realistic stuff could be where, like, if the Vikings go up here, Arizona at 4 obviously would take probably Harrison, but then at 5, the Chargers could take O-line. If they're like, hey, we only want to take a receiver if it's, Marvin Harrison Jr. if he's there. Maybe they go Neighbors. Maybe the first 3 are wide receivers and this is Alt, and maybe I'm just crazy. But I don't know if the Giants would pass on JJ. If this is quarterback, receiver, and JJ's still there, maybe the Giants are like, we can't do that. We can't pass on him. So that would kind of change up the whole mock as well. But then we have 8 with the Falcons, and I think if Arizona trades back, I don't think they're afraid to go back up, and I think this would make a lot of sense. I had this in another mock where they trade back up to go ahead and try and get one of the trio of receivers. In this case, I'm just having them give me a second. Again, it's relative. I don't want to waste a ton of time on exactly what they'd get, but I think they would go back up to get Odunze, and I think that would work out. I mean, they would get, obviously have to give up, a few stuff, but getting multiple first-round picks, seems like they just want to build a ton of talent. And if they don't, they're staying, but their first-round pick is going to be a wide receiver, like their first-round pick, probably. That's kind of the assumption. Then we have 9 with the Bears, and we've seen this rumor going around, and maybe this player is the first defensive player on the board, and I think if the board plays out like this is why he could be the first defensive player, or the Falcons were linked to take this player, apparently. I don't think it would happen because it doesn't make sense, but that's Byron Murphy, because he makes more sense to the Bears than he does to the Falcons here. Again, could be pass rusher as well, but I think if they are just staying and picking here, and maybe they would take, obviously, Dallas Turner as well, but they've been linked to Byron Murphy, and he has slowly been rising as maybe being the first defensive player off the board at 9. So let's go ahead and do it. Why not? And then if the board falls this way at 10, I would say that Brock Bowers is probably the pick there. They seem to want to potentially just go get a weapon, and it'll be the best weapon that's on the board, and that is for sure Brock Bowers to the Jets here. And then the Falcons trade down a little bit, and they still get a player they probably would have taken, and that's Dallas Turner. There's been a lot of different people that have had, different guys going to them. I think Laitu Latu would definitely be the pick here as well. Just for this sake, I've just seen more Turner, so I'm just going to have him go there, but it could easily be Latu, and it doesn't really change a ton because I think both of them are still going to be highly coveted edge rushers, and whoever goes first, the other one will go second. So Turner to the Falcons. Let's go ahead and do that. Or it could be a corner if they want a cornerback as well. That could be the case as well. Then we have the Broncos at number 12. And this one is kind of interesting because obviously they need a quarterback, like we've been saying. But I think in this scenario, they might be okay just getting one of the two final first-round quarterbacks. And there's a player that's still on the board that I think could go higher that really fits this team's need and just how they draft, and that's the Indianapolis Colts. They obviously are maybe trying to look at getting Brock Bowers apparently. That could be a trade to 9 with Chicago if they're fine moving down to jump the Jets for Brock. Could see that. But in this case, we will go ahead and have them trade up with the Broncos because the Broncos just need more picks, man. I don't think it'd be a second-round pick, maybe a fourth instead, or maybe 2/3. Not 100% sure. Again, doesn't matter at all. But we'll have them go ahead and trade up, and they'll get Quinion Mitchell out of Toledo. He is a crazy athlete. They love him. He's the best corner in the class. I think they would just be pretty ecstatic if they were able to make this trade and go up and get him. And I don't know. We don't know if they trade up or down all the time. It's kind of random, but their GM is Chris Ballard's, I think, a pretty aggressive GM. So I think I could definitely see this happening. And then the Raiders at 13 with the Colts jumping the Raiders for a corner. There's just been some smoke about them, wanting a quarterback, and that all the quarterbacks will potentially be gone within the first half of the draft, like in the first round, which obviously would be pick 16 and above. And why not? Let's just go ahead and buy into it. Let's get Michael Penix to Washington, or from Washington to the Raiders. I do think if Penix is there, the Raiders would take him over Nix if Nix is also there. And there has been linked. They obviously tried to trade up to number 2. They called Washington because, the connections with their head coach, Antonio, so didn't work, obviously, because the Commanders are going to be sticking and picking. But I think if you're just trying to figure out where Penix is going to go, this just feels like the most likely place. It just does. So let's go ahead and have them do that there. And then the Saints at 14, pretty easy pick. Talisi Fuanga, tackle. They need him. He can move inside potentially if the 2 tackles they have now in Trevor Penning and Ryan Ramczyk both play this year. You could just have Fuanga move on the inside and then kick to the outside. This seems like a pretty set pick as well if he is there. And then the Broncos, they trade back, get some capital. Maybe if Brock Bowers is there, the Bengals, like we've had in a different mock, trade up to get Brock Bowers. But in this case, I think they just need to go ahead and get Bo Nix, which means, yes, all 6 quarterbacks are in the first half of the first round. But that's kind of the rumor going around. Peter Schrager had kind of put that out there, and I think this might be one of the likely scenarios that happens. Or they just stay and get him, which is totally fine. But I think get a little bit of extra picks back, because I don't think a team would trade with the Saints to jump you guys if you move down. Like, I don't really know who would do that because I don't think there is a team that's like, yes, we need to go get this player. But Broncos are the only ones. Like, they do. Now, the Broncos have been rumored to maybe trade up, and that would, I assume, would be for J.J. McCarthy, but that would have to be pick 4 or 5, or if the Vikings go get 3, then they could jump to try and get J.J. ahead of the Giants. So it's very convoluted, but they don't have a lot of capital. They really don't. So they'd be giving up a ton, hinging their whole future for J.J., and he would have to start immediately with a roster offensively that's not as good, I'd be really worried about that if I was a Broncos fan. So go ahead and get Nix. I think this is just safer. You get picked back by going down, still get a quarterback. This seems like kind of the just smarter move. Then we have Seattle at 16, and they're kind of looking around. The board looks pretty solid for them. They could take a few guys. But there's a team that has kind of been rumored to be very aggressive, and I don't know if I've seen a ton of people do this, but I'm going to go ahead and buy into it. We're going to have the Philadelphia Eagles. They've been rumored to really want to go ahead and try and trade up for a defensive back. Again, somewhere, probably a second-round pick or something like that, they'll give up. And we're going to have them go up and take the cornerback out of Alabama, Terrion Arnold, in front of the Jaguars. Their GM, we know, is very aggressive, but I could see Seattle being willing to move back in exchange for more picks because the O-line of that team is just so bad, and they also have a few other potential splurge needs that they could get, and I think they make the most sense to potentially trade down. If they stay there, it's Troy Fautanu for sure, I would say. But if the Eagles maybe give up a good haul, they could go up and go get a corner, which is rumored that they aggressively want to do that. And then you got 17, the Jags. They're like, hey, a corner just got taken. Look, if we're going and we want the best player that fits, Cooper DeJean, I think, would be that, but he doesn't necessarily fit exactly what they need. They kind of need an outside corner. And if they're looking at their board, I think a good amount of people potentially have this wide receiver going somewhere in this range, and that's Brian Thomas Jr. I know the Jags just paid receivers, but they did lose Calvin Ridley. They paid Gabe Davis, but not a crazy amount. And they apparently have been doing their due diligence on all of these receivers, like all of them. And if they can't get into the top, which maybe could happen if Rome Odunze falls or something like that, I think maybe they could target Brian Thomas Jr., even if Terrion Arnold is there. I think if he is there, I would still say that the Jags would take Terrion Arnold. But if he's not, I think Brian Thomas Jr. would be a pretty interesting pick there as well. And then you have the Bengals at 18. This is a pick that I haven't seen a lot of people make because I don't think they think he's going to be on the board. Which, if he's not on the board, I think this would be either J.C. Latham or Olu Fashanu. But if he is on the board, I think you have to take him, and that's Troy Fautanu. They do have Orlando Brown and the other Brown, I can't remember his name, but two tackles they have that they signed. They're older. Trent Brown, just remembered his name. They're both older, so I think Fautanu would make perfect sense. Like, he could kick inside to start and then go outside. But the Bengals could also go get Brock Bowers. They could get a D lineman, very realistic, maybe Drazon Newton. Or, again, like I said, one of the tackles. A lot of different spots they could go, but if Fautanu doesn't go to Seattle and they trade down, I think this would be a pretty good pick for them. Then we have the Rams at 19. I think this is kind of easy. It's Laitu Latu. If he's there, it just makes the most sense. They need an edge rusher. If Byron Murphy falls, he would go here, but it seems like he's getting a lot of hype to go very high. So I'm thinking that's going to be the case. And I think they prefer Laitu Latu to Jared Verse because he just has higher upside and better production. And they need to make up for the production they are losing with Aaron Donald. And they need interior and, outside the tackle pass rushers. So we'll go ahead and get Laitu Latu there. And then at 20 for the Steelers, this one was a little bit difficult trying to figure out exactly who they'd get, but I think they should just look at the best O-lineman on the board, and that's either Olu or JC. In this case, we're going to have them go Olu, just because I do slightly prefer Olu. Or not slightly, I do definitely prefer Olu, but I know a lot of teams have JC high. I think in a mock that I did with Mathis, the most recent one, if the Chargers trade down, they love all, and I think JC might be the second guy on their board, and they could take him at 11 if Chargers trade down. So he could go as high as 11, but we'll have him go here to 21. So we'll have Olu and JC, back-to-back picks. And with the Steelers, I think if Brian Thomas Jr. is here, they would take him. But I do think they're going to prioritize tackle, and I think this is the best one on the board. And then with the Dolphins, I just have no clue. I really don't. Brock Bowers is a slight possibility, but I don't think it's going to happen. They could use an interior player, obviously guard, but is there one worth taking? I do think Graham Barton is worth taking for sure, but it seems like they value tackle more because they do need a tackle, I would say, because, Teron Armstead is not going to stay healthy all year. But then they could also get defensive interior, like Jazon Newton would make sense. But then they've also been rumored for Jared Verse, if he's still there, which I don't want to do because we already did it, spoiler alert, in Mathis's mock that I did with him. But then they could also literally just say, hey, we want speed and get Xavier Worthy. Like, I could see that happening. So, really, multiple ways they could go. We'll just go best player on the board, BPA for them here. And then we have the Seahawks at 22, and they could end up going Amarius Mims. Now, I think you could flip any of these. Like, I think Mims could go to Miami and then Latham here. Maybe that would make more sense if he could go and develop, in Miami and then Latham, Seattle. Maybe I kind of convinced myself to switch that. But, again, it doesn't really matter. Just some kind of tackle is definitely going to Seattle, and I would think Miami would get a tackle just with the value on the board there. But again, you never know. This is probably the floor for a lot of these tackle prospects. But again, they get pushed down because you got quarterbacks going high. You got trades, other receivers that are going up. So that's kind of how the draft works. That's what happens. Then we have the Cardinals at 23. This one seems kind of easy. Jazon Newton, I think, no matter what team, if it's because this was the Vikings pick, obviously, that they got from the Texans, who got from the, Browns. This is probably Jazon Newton, whether it's the Chargers, the Cardinals, or if the the Patriots. If they go back, if whoever teams goes back, I think Jazon Newton is probably the pick at that spot at 23, because that makes sense. All those teams could use a defensive interior player, and this is probably his floor, I would say. Then we have the Cowboys at 24. We had this in the other mock. I think it just makes sense. If he's here, I think Miami would take him potentially. If he's not, I think they would still go O-line, like Amarius Mims or J.C. Latham. I think Cowboys are taking O-line. Apparently, they're rumored for a receiver like Xavier Legette. That would be pretty crazy in my opinion. But Barton is very, very good. He was in the Studs video, the Studs and Steals, the part 2. Check out both of those if you actually want to learn about any of the players in the draft. But Graham Barton, he's not going to be a tackle. He'll be a guard or a center. Very, very good, and he'll pretty much be exactly what you expect out of a Cowboys offensive lineman. Just very good. They just know how to get their O-lineman. So pretty easy pick there. Packers, another easy pick. If this player falls, I think they will take him, and that's Cooper DeJean. I don't really know exactly where he's going to go. He's kind of been up and down all over the place. But if he's here, I think it's just a pretty easy pick. I don't know why you wouldn't take him. And then the Bucks. We're going to get not crazy, but just a little spicy with them preferring one edge rusher over the one you would think, with Jared Verse slightly falling. I just couldn't really find a place for him in this mock. Again, it could be to Miami here for sure, but I think that would push some of these O-linemen down, which doesn't seem as realistic. Maybe Graham Barton, and he goes here. You could do that for sure if you're saying, hey, Jared Verse to Miami, all of these stay the same. Maybe these guys instead take Mims or Latham, since one of them would have to be there. And then, boom, this is Graham Barton. That's definitely going to be a possibility as well, but I can only do one thing, So we'll get spicy. We'll have them take Chop. They're going to bet on the traits. He's rumored to potentially be, a guaranteed first-round pick. So we'll take it as it is. We'll have him go there. And then the Cardinals at 27, they have Verse looking, like, hey, we could get this guy, but they also have a big need at corner, and I think that, they could be looking at both of these guys, and it's just a very interesting pick. I'm still not even 100% sure of who I should take, but I think based on what's more likely, Verse might not fall this far, but I think if you're looking at the Cardinals, and they just picked, an interior defensive lineman and a receiver, they probably would get a corner. So we'll go ahead and go Nate Wiggins for them at 27. Then the Bills, this is easy. Adonai Mitchell. Again, he's kind of the most volatile receiver, I would say. He has some of the highest ceiling, but also has the lowest floor, some character concerns. I know Wiggins has some character concerns, which pushes both of them down the board. But apparently with Adonai Mitchell, there was something with, obviously his blood sugar levels, because he has diabetes, and he, apparently if they're, too low, he's, terrible, like he's just a horrible guy to work with, apparently, from trainers. Again, it's hearsay, but he also has effort concerns, but he's insanely talented. He could literally be CeeDee Lamb. That's his ceiling. So I think the Bills will take the risk with that. And then the Lions, which I want to do something crazy for them. I really, really, really do. But with Verse on the board, I think they would probably take him. Now, I at least want to go ahead and just go over what the possibilities could be. And I think it's Kool-Aid McKinstry obviously is there, but I think they could also love Ennis Rakestraw Jr. I think just his physicality fits in well. But what I could totally see happening and what I almost mocked was Marshawn Kneeland in the first round. Because we obviously always see shockers all the time. In the Lions' history, they have not really cared about any sort of positional value or just value with players at all. They'll take the guy they feel is best. And Marshawn Kneeland is 100% a Lions player through and through. And if they're saying, hey, we have a late second-round pick, we don't know if we can get this guy, maybe they don't want to trade up. Maybe they just say, hey, screw it, we'll take him here. I could definitely see that happening. In this case, though, we'll go Verse. But just imagine Verse, if he's somewhere higher, maybe he goes to Miami or something and this all changes. I don't know. It was just weird to figure it all out. Just the chop thing seems like he's going to go early. You could imagine this being Marshawn Kneeland if you want, or Kool-Aid McKinstry. I'm totally fine with that. The Ravens at 30 to finish up this mock. This one is kind of a weird pick as well. I'm not 100% sure exactly what they're going to do. But I think they just have so little receivers, on the board. And I just think they need to go get Ladd. Some part of it's not really rumors. It's kind of just I just think they should do this. I'm not 100% sure. If they don't take Ladd, it's probably going to be Tyler Guyton, which is who the Niners are probably going to take here at 31. So maybe you flip these two. But if Guyton goes 30, I think the Niners could look at maybe Kool-Aid if he's there, or a Jordan Morgan as well. And I think that might be who I have going to the Chiefs as well, because I think they just really need another tackle. They just do. Receiver, I know they would love to get Xavier Worthy, and I might. I was very close. I was very close to drafting him here. But they have no one else at tackle. It's just Jawan Taylor. That's it. And he was not very good. And I do love Jordan Morgan, so we'll go ahead and get Jordan Morgan here to the Chiefs. And this is our mock. It's not perfect, obviously. Nothing is, and nothing will be. But I do think a lot of these make relative sense in terms of what could happen and what I think teams are thinking. And I kind of like it. It's different. So maybe we get a few hits, like maybe Seattle does trade up, or the Colts also do trade up. Maybe Verse falls. Not 100% sure. It's just some guys just get pushed down. There's a ton of people that get pushed down that we didn't think would. Brian Branch last year was a guaranteed first-round pick. Nope. Michael Mayer. Nope. A lot of guys get pushed all the time. So, again, it's the draft. You never know. But before you go, I did have another mock that I wanted to show of another possibility that could happen, and that's here. If New England does trade down and Drake May goes here, you could have the Cardinals saying, hey, we're just going to go Marvin, and the Chargers going Joe Alt, because I think the Patriots would be okay going back and taking Michael Penix. And then obviously you see a bunch of all this other crazy stuff. I'm going to try and explain it to you. Joe Alt has been linked, and they apparently love an offensive lineman, so I could see them going here. The Cardinals stay because no one else really is going to trade up. And the Giants are like, hey, he's there. We're just going to take him. We're just going to take J.J. McCarthy here at 6. And then with the receivers going down, the Jets are like, oh, we got to go get someone. So they move up a little bit because Tennessee lost their chance with Joe Alt. They go get Malik Neighbors. The Falcons are rumored to get Byron Murphy. Who cares? We're just going to say, oh, sure. They go and get Byron Murphy. And then the Bears, apparently Caleb loves Rome. And the Bears are like, hey, we have an old Keenan Allen. Let's just go ahead and get him. Keenan Allen's going to play in the slot. And we'll have Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, and DJ Moore. Boom. They have a duo there. The Titans trade down and take Olu because Olu's the best pure left tackle without Joe Alt there anymore, and they need a left tackle, so boom, they trade down, get Olu. And the Patriots, apparently, if they do trade down, they are okay sticking and picking Michael Penix. Or they could trade down again if a team wants to jump up. But after they do that, they get Penix, and then Bo Nix, Quinion Mitchell, And then I could see New Orleans trading back because they need offensive line, but there would still be good offensive linemen on the board, so they could trade back. And then the Bengals go up and get Bowers, who fell because the Jets were like, we need to get this receiver. Then Brian Thomas Jr. to the Colts. If they don't get a corner that's super athletic, they'll get a receiver that's super athletic. The Seahawks get Troy, as we had said, for a lot. Jags, again, easy. Arnold, Fuanga to 18 if they trade down. They could even take him at 14 if they want, or maybe Bowers does fall to 18. Who knows? And then in this mock, we have Dallas Turner falling, and he goes here to the Rams. J.C. Latham, and then Laitu Latu to Miami if he does end up potentially, if the edges do fall. And then we have Cooper DeJean if they want to go and get a corner. Nate Wiggins could be the pick as well, but I just think DeJean is just better, and they could use him in the slot. Jared Verse, Patriots are like, let's just get the best defensive player on the board. Then we have Grant Barton, again, staying here. Packers, if it's not Cooper DeJean, could be Amarius Mims at tackle if he's there. Chop Robinson, we kept. Jason Newton to the Cardinals. They still have that one pick. Adonai Mitchell's the same. I want to just make this clear that this could easily be Marshawn Nealand. I want everyone to know, or Kool-Aid. But here the corners fall, so they get Nate Wiggins. Lions get Kool-Aid, and then you got Jordan Morgan. Could be Tyler Guyton. I just prefer Morgan. I think he's better. But, yeah, let's just say this is Tyler Guyton again. But I wanted to switch it up. I didn't want it to be the same. And then Xavier Worthy or Tyler Guyton. You could just have these flipped as the final pick. So this is a potential of what could happen as well. Because I think just thinking like, hey, could chaos happen? Like, yeah, this could be it. But some of these picks, I think maybe if we combine the two mocks, this one and how it looks, and this one, there might be a world where we get a very good, mock with combining both of them and potential picks that happen. But that is going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching all of the videos during draft time. This is the first time I've uploaded YouTube, and it's for draft content in the beginning, but we're going to have way more videos out. It's not just an NFL draft channel. There'll be off-season stuff, stuff for other sports as well, because I do follow the other sports, and I'm just so excited for draft season. I know all of you are too, and the draft is going to be here Thursday night. I'll be on a live stream with Mathis, so go to Mathis NFL. I'll be not live streaming on my own channel, but I'll join him for his live stream there. So if you want to kind of chill with us, see the picks, our analysis, and everything like that, go ahead over there. But, yeah, I'm so excited for draft season, and let's let the chaos begin. We'll see what happens. But, as always, thank you for watching. Stay smart, stay sharp, and I will see you guys later. Peace.